Welcome to the Vaughan Nelson Podcast. Today is the third quarter 2025 Vaughan Nelson Global SMid recap. And with me today is lead portfolio manager Jim Eisenman. And with that, Jim, I will turn things over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Global equity markets extended their rally in the third quarter, with the majority of regions delivering positive returns. In the U.S., benign inflation and steady employment data, together with easing financial conditions and abundant global liquidity, underpinned the continued market advances. Gains were broad-based, with signs of capitulation from bearish investors contributing to a meaningful rally in lower-quality small and micro-cap securities. The portfolio performed well during the quarter on both an absolute return basis and relative to the benchmark. The relative outperformance was driven by stock selection in the United States, Japan, and Mexico. However, our overweight allocations to Germany and the United Kingdom were a drag on relative performance during the quarter. As we look ahead to the fourth quarter, we anticipate an increase in market volatility given the substantial gains in equity markets year to date. Despite this near-term risk, the broader environment remains constructive. Monetary policy is generally accommodative across major central banks, and fiscal spending is expected to remain at or near current levels. Assuming commodity prices remain fairly stable, inflation is likely to remain well contained in the near term. These conditions should help set the stage for improved economic growth into early 2026. While the AI-driven rally remains a prominent theme, we expect accelerating economic activity to broaden market participation, particularly in jurisdictions where policy remains supportive. On a sector basis, the portfolio is currently overweight industrials, financials, and materials. On a country basis, we are overweight the U.S., Mexico, Germany, and underweight Japan, Canada, Taiwan, and China. We remain active in utilizing market volatility to selectively initiate or add to positions that offer compelling long-term upside potential. We continue to find attractive investment opportunities across global markets and are positioning portfolios to capture what we believe will be a more favorable growth environment in 2026.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much, Jim. And with that, we will move to returns. In the third quarter of 2025, the Vaughan Nelson Global SMid strategy returned 8.69% gross, 8.45% net versus the MSCI ACWI SMid Cap Index at 6.31%, which brings a year-to-date return for the Global SMid to 20.4% gross, 19.6% net, and 16.86% for the MSCI ACWI SMid Cap Index. Of course, over the course of the last 1 year, the Vaughan Nelson Global SMid strategy has returned 15.35% gross, 14.33% net, and 12.92% for the MSCI ACWI SMid Cap Index. For the past 3 years, the Vaughan Nelson Global SMid strategy has returned 18.01% gross, 16.97% net, and that's up against the MSCI ACWI SMid Cap Index at 17.86%. For the past 5 years, the Vaughan Nelson Global SMid has returned 13.86% gross, 12.85% net, and 11% for the MSCI ACWI SMid Cap Index. And last, since inception, the Vaughan Nelson Global SMid Cap strategy has returned 14.87% gross, 13.85% net, and the MSCI ACWI SMid Cap Index is at 12.03%. And with that, that's a wrap on the third quarter. So thank you very much, Jim, and we'll catch you here soon.
The views, information, and/or opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Vaughan Nelson and its employees. Vaughan Nelson does not verify and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy of any of the information contained in the podcast. The primary purpose of the information, opinions, and thoughts presented in this podcast is to educate and inform. This podcast, or any podcast in the series, does not constitute professional investment advice or services, and any reliance on the information provided is done at your own risk. Past performance is not an indication of future performance. By accessing this podcast, you acknowledge that the entire contents of this podcast are the property of Vaughan Nelson or used by Vaughan Nelson with permission and are protected under U.S. copyright and trademark laws. Securities discussed within this podcast may be held in the Vaughan Nelson strategies.